Pacers Nation. You are listening to the Pacers Post-Up, brought to you by the brothers of basketball, Brad and Ryan, a part of the Believe Sports Network, presented by FanDuel. Pacers fans, let's get into it. All right, Pacers fans, we are back for yet another episode of the Pacers Post-Up. Ryan, another Summer League game in the books here, and it was one that was, frankly, a little bit similar to the game against Philadelphia on Saturday, where Pacers dig themselves a massive hole early, fight, scratch, claw their way back into the game, take a lead, look like they have an opportunity to win it late, and unfortunately, just didn't have enough in winning time. Didn't make the closing plays. The final drive by Braden Smith, dump off to Rink Mast, who had another great game, was promptly swatted out of contention, and the Pacers fall. I believe it was 94-93 to the Raptors. Again, Summer League, not going to overreact to the wins and losses too much, although it does move us to 1-2 overall. Probably not going to see extra games for this team, just depending upon how the bracket works out or the wins, losses. I'm not even sure how they determine it, but I know there will be more games for teams that have the better records, and somebody will end up winning this Summer League when it's all said and done, but not really what we want to talk about today. This is more so a continuation of our player evaluation conversations, looking at some of the guys that are in contention for roster spots, two-way spots, etc. I think, Ryan, I certainly don't want to lead the horse to water too much here, but I think we're starting to learn a little bit more about some of these guys, the Jalen Slawsons, the Braden Smiths, the Yuki Kawamuras. I do think there's a conversation to have about Talon Peter. From what he did yesterday, it wasn't a huge game, but again, this is not about wins and losses. This is about what these guys are looking like, the cases that they are making, frankly, not only to the Pacers front office, but also around the league in general for contract spots, two-way spots. Ryan, coming out of game 3, where do you want to start?
It's probably not a good thing that I want to start with Yuki and Mast. And that is because those are two guys that, frankly, I don't think have a real chance at this final two-way spot, but they played well. And so I'm not going to really touch a ton on them. Mast was hitting outside shots, showed a little bit of touch around the rim. I just don't think his fit's ever going to be serious in the NBA, at least right now. Yuki's so fun, though. He just comes in, just so much energy, such a quick burst. In games, the last 2 games in particular, when the Pacers needed a jump, when the offense was kind of dead, he came in, was creating separation, was getting out in transition, was finding guys in the corner, and was just really impressive. And so it's funny I want to start with them, but that's not who we want to talk about on today's podcast, likely, because the guys we're watching and you kind of alluded to are Braden Smith, Talon Peter, and Jalen Slawson. And I thought Slawson had another really good showing, and the athleticism through the first 3 games is off the charts. You tweeted out he had a putback dunk at the end of the second quarter, I think, that was just about as nasty as a putback I've seen in Summer League. He had some highlight blocks. He did get posterized once, but I was actually glad he just went for it. That's the risk, and players know that when you go for shots like that. And he's putting up strong numbers. Right now, through 3 games, he's averaging over 20 points, 6 rebounds, and over 2 assists, and nearly 3 blocks. And those are the numbers you want to see. You want to see these guys pop. And I know the argument around the league, and I think some people who talk about the Summer League settle into this too much, that the Summer League doesn't really matter. Like, the guys don't need to pop, things change. And I don't know. I'm looking around the league, and the young guys who we thought would pop. I mean, between Caleb Wilson, who's hitting threes, and now Boozer and Peterson and DeBonta, those guys pop. And so I even think back to Pacers. Miles Turner did this. Walker did this. Matherin did this. Like, you want to see these guys excel. And it's not the end all be all if they don't, but Jalen Slawson is showing that he can excel and has. And clearly, if you're just running the eye test, on this team, he's the most talented one out there the Pacers have. Now, the issue, and I'll let you come in here in a second, Brad, is I don't know if Peter and Braden have done that so far. And I think some of that, the argument is Peter's kind of a role guy and needs to settle into a role and see people come through. And then Braden, again, to me, had a really slow start to this game. The offense was really ugly the first 3 quarters. He found a real rhythm with the bigs around him in the about 7 minutes left in the fourth. I think he had 4 or 5 assists under that, which got his total up to 9, which was good to see. But 0 for 7 of the floor is 0 for 7 of the floor, and he's 4 of 21 from the field overall in Summer League right now.
It's been tough. And I've got a little bit of a deeper dive conversation that I want to get to around Braden Smith, because I think that's where we have to go at this point. We're now 75% of the way through Summer League. A couple of quick reactions on the Jalen Slawson first and foremost, because it was interesting yesterday. You mentioned the video that I tweeted out, and then I started to see on Twitter this conversation. Give him the 15th roster spot. Give this guy, a full contract, if you will. Somebody, I forget, I hate not giving credit, but it was like somebody tweeted something like, if we don't give him a full roster spot, somebody else will. And I'm not sure, has he done enough? Has he turned enough heads around the league? There's still some inefficiencies. You mentioned some of the stats. I mean, he's only shooting 41% from the floor overall, 22% from the line. So there is inefficiency, but the high water marks are very high. The blocks, the highlight reel dunks that we've talked about. It is, I know I'm going to absolutely just put this phrase into the ground. People are going to be sick of hearing it. The athleticism jumps off the screen. And when you're talking about Summer League, where there's a lot of guys that are not going to live up to that billing, he stands out. And so I do think I've gotten some comments, based on our last episode around the contract situation. I'm still not fully clear. I think he can, I don't know what the team would have to do. It doesn't really matter at this point, because you can put him on a 2-way contract, and if you make a move down the road, convert him to a standard deal or whatever. I think bar none, alongside Kobe Brown, this guy has to be solidified in the stable. There is nobody that is impressed more coming out of Summer League, and whether we do something to get him on a standard or we find, one of those spots on the 2-way, I frankly don't care. We just need to keep him inside the building. That's really what matters most, and he's done enough. I mean, Ryan, I look at it. He's played 26 minutes, averaged just under 21 points. Caleb Wilson's playing 31 minutes a game and has averaged 27 points. I mean, this guy's keeping up. And Caleb's probably been the talk of Summer League. Had another, I don't know if you saw it, monstrous jam last night. Again, making all of Pacers Nation a little bit sick, but here nor there. I do want to touch on, before we get to Braden Smith, a quick thought on Jalen Peter, because this is a guy that I know you said you were high on coming into Summer League. The stats don't wow you. You mentioned it. He's not a setup man. He needs to be set up. He needs players around him, creating space, shot opportunities, etc. But how many alley-oop dunks has he finished? I just feel like his athleticism does jump out a little bit. Like, he's done well finishing in transition, finishing the lobs. The shot was better last night. I think he finished, maybe it was 10 points or something like that. I don't know. Last night, I was really down on him after game 2. Yesterday, I thought, okay, maybe he's trying to kind of find his spots. It was a little bit of a cleaner game. I'm not totally ready to throw him out yet, I guess. And I know, we did our power rankings on the previous episode. He was, I think, 5th for me, and he was an honorable mention for you. But I thought he helped himself a little bit more, particularly if the front office is looking through the lens of, we know that this guy is a system player. And Ben Shepherd, we've mentioned it, looked not great in Summer League contests, particularly when he was asked to be more of an initiator and facilitator, not his role. You put him alongside better players, and I know the fan base is polarized on Shepherd, but the reality is, when you put him alongside our starters, he looks really good, and he fits in and just kind of connects, everything that we're trying to do from a system perspective. So I just want to get your thoughts on Jalen Peter before we kind of move on to the Braden Smith narrative, that is the end all be all storyline.
Yeah, Peter, I like a lot what you said. The athleticism is on display. He actually almost shook somebody down and then backed out of it. Like, so the handles, like, I think he can get around people decently. He had a couple really nice defensive possessions in the third quarter, just moving his feet, staying in front of people. I think the goal right now for Peter, if we're looking at these two-way spots and we're being realistic about who deserves them and who's earned them, is I don't want to lose Peter. I don't think he's quite gotten to the two-way level yet. So maybe he is somebody we can retain in the G League and see him play out a year in there, keep him, and then kind of what you said, depending on how two ways move and standards work, maybe he's somebody we can elevate mid-season if we need a shooter. And that's still where it comes down, because if you look at his stats, he's, efficiency wise, one of the best. As you alluded, Jalen Slawson's only shooting 40% from the field. Yuki's shooting 43. Braden Smith shooting 19% from the field. Talon's shooting 50% from the field. But the crux is he's shooting 33% from deep. And that number is carried over from last year from deep. And if you're going to be a sharpshooter, at some point those shots have to fall. And we give him some grace, much like we have a Ben Shepherd, because we like the form, we like the flow, and we think that number is going to continue to crawl up, but it needs to start doing that. And 3-game sample size is not enough to go on anything. And that's why Summer League, people always say, hey, you can't take much out of it. But we're now starting to look where he's living around that 33, 34% from deep. He did that in the G League. He did that his stints as the Pacers. We just need to see that crawl up a bit.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's really going to depend on what the front office thinks. Do they trust the work he's putting in, the mechanics, what they're seeing beyond these small game, 3-game, 4-game sample sizes, right? And so again, it's highly competitive. You've got Kobe Brown already in the slot. You've got, what looks to be Jalen Slawson locking up some sort of position. And you've really already, I don't want to say promised it to Braden Smith, but that was the intent. And so let's get to Braden Smith, because I think where I want to go here is, again, was a two-way contract promised? I don't know what was discussed, but here's what I do know. We traded Cam Jones to get the 38th overall pick and draft Braden Smith. Okay. And it has been abundantly clear to anybody paying attention to the Pacers over the last couple of years, we are trying to backfill a guard role, somebody that can be a depth piece behind an aging TJ McConnell, behind a now injured, comeback Tyrese Halliburton, et cetera. And we took a swing with Cam Jones last year, right? And I just want for fans to put this in perspective. I want to kind of paint the picture of what Summer League looked like last year, because we were having, albeit a different conversation, because Cam Jones was out of Marquette, not the hometown kid, right? But the kid that was drafted early in the second round to be a backup point guard. Cam Jones averaged 14 points last year in Summer League across 4 games, shot 50% from the field, 33% from deep, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. Okay, those were his numbers last year. Just to throw another wrench into the conversation, for those that don't remember, we had Ray J. Dennis on a 2-way deal, and he played a lot in Summer League last year. Also 4 games, 16 points, shot 42% from the field, 40% from 3, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 turnovers, 2 steals. Okay. One Braden Smith through 3 games, and I get it, small sample size, but we can only go off of what we have seen. 7 points a game. You mentioned 19% from the field, 17% from deep, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals. There is no other word besides underwhelming to characterize what Braden Smith has done thus far. And I as much as I want to root for the kid, I love the hometown story. I love the idea of him being this heir apparent to TJ McConnell. It's the hustle, it's the heart, it's, Indiana. I know it's Purdue, but Indiana basketball, he's Mr. Indiana basketball coming out of high school, all of that. I don't really care at this point. I just want a good backup point guard. And if you look at what those two guys in Ray J and Cam did last year, it's hard to argue that they didn't outperform what we've seen through 3 games. I know, the 9 assists jump off the page from a box score perspective yesterday, but it was still inefficient trying to get any sort of meaningful, offensive production out of Braden. And when you are undersized, the defense is always going to be under a microscope. Yeah, he hustles, he gets some steals here and there, but he also gets beat quite often. And so it's just one of those things where I keep coming back to this word of underwhelmed. And I guess, Ryan, is there something I'm missing? Are we being too hard on him through 3 games?
No, in all full transparency, I think Braden Smith is really lucky right now to look at how our two-way slots are going to work out, because I think he has a clear spot. And let's say for whatever reason it was Jalen Slawson and Braden Smith competing for this last spot, it would be really hard to argue that Braden Smith should get it, even though we just traded for him, even though we used the draft capital on him, because there hasn't been enough. And some of the things we were concerned about with him coming out of his draft, his size, his burst, are on full display. And I can't ignore the fact that he is supposed to be running this ship of Summer League. And through 3 quarters yesterday, the offense, when he was on the floor, was bad. And then Yuki would come in and it got way better instantly. And that's just a real thing. It passed the eye test, it passed the numbers, it passed the stats. And if that's how it's going to be, then that's not going to work for Braden. And I think the one argument that people are making, and it's true, is Braden does seem to get better as the game goes on. It seems like in each fourth quarter, he's found a little bit of rhythm, settled into the offense a little bit more. But when 3 quarters your offense is bad, you're clearly struggling with size, and not just on the defensive end, but the offensive end. Anytime he's coming around pick and rolls, anybody with length is giving him, issues. He's not seeing the lanes, he's not creating the space. And I just think it's clear that the one thing he's going to have to find a way is this: how do I create space? How do I get this burst? Because he doesn't seem to have the burst that some of these other small guards have right now. And maybe he's just kind of playing more in the flow of the game, but that's a real concern. And I'm with you, where I don't know what word I would have chose to, say what is his performance through 3 games of Summer League, but underwhelming is about hitting it right on the nose. It just hasn't been good from the field. It hasn't been great defensively, and the assist numbers overall at 6 assists to 2 turnovers a game, that's fine, but it's not enough to really start getting me excited.
So let me ask you a question, because I largely agree with everything that you said, and I think the narrative is starting to sort of solidify that Braden Smith is not going to be on this roster from a big roster perspective, right? Like, there is no chance he's coming in the 15th roster spot to provide guard depth. Like, I would be shocked if that happened anytime soon. Okay. So it really sort of, Ryan, begs the question. You start looking at our depth chart, and right now, if you just want to call it from a true positional perspective, it's Tyrese Halliburton, TJ McConnell, and then kind of Quentin Jackson in that combo guard spot, right? I know Andrew Nembhard can be a lead ball handler. We saw that all last year. And so I don't want to, be kind of ignorant of that reality. But given what we've seen out of Braden Smith at this point through Summer League, and understanding that right now, if TJ doesn't play, you're essentially going to spread the ball handling duties around to Andrew Nembhard as maybe a pseudo number 2 point guard, and then it's Quentin Jackson. So are we at the point where the front office really needs to go out and find a true backup point guard that can lead an offense? Because I know Quentin Jackson's a point guard. He's not really a lead initiator, okay? More of a scoring combo guard. I guess, I think as we drafted Braden Smith, Cam Jones was on the roster last year. He was the one, and I know that there was the, back injury early in the season. And listen, last year was the year from hell from an injury perspective, but he was on the roster, right, as our kind of third point guard. Are we at the point where we need to go find a veteran point guard to provide us some depth at this point going into next season?
I don't think we're quite there. I think if there was a need to fill the 15th spot, that is definitely what you go get. We've kind of solidified the bigs. We have plenty of wings now, especially when Furphy gets healthy. There's a lot of depth there between Oubre, Walker, Furphy, Shepard. And I do think it'll be really important because at some point, I mean, we don't want to play Tyrese 82 games. We don't play TJ 82 games. Nembhard, the same idea. I'm with you that Quentin's kind of a better fill-in for that 2 spot, almost play him next to Tyrese. But when he goes down, we're going to have to get interesting. I think there's enough playmaking on this roster. We've seen Shepard kind of step into a, pseudo point guard role at times. We've seen Walker do that. Oubre's got a little bit of that, probably not quite to that level, but we've seen him do that in seasons past. I think if you go fill the spot, you definitely look at that. However, I think the roster flexibility is probably what they're looking at because as I'm trying to understand this cap situation, and you brought it up with Slawson, it's hard to read, but my best understanding is the only way we can fill this 15th roster spot without dropping a guy or waiving a guy like Q is essentially to get a player with 0 or 1 years of experience on the roster. And so you're still going to probably be looking at, a player that's not got a team right now that you're giving a spot to. And I don't know if it's worth giving up the flexibility when you could potentially sign a guy to a 10-day in a pinch if you needed it as a backup point guard spot. And look, as much as we're, kind of saying Braden's been underwhelming as a two-way guy, if he needed to slot in on a Tuesday night against Charlotte and play 10 minutes, I'm not losing sleep over that. That's why you get two-way guys. That's why you draft a point guard to kind of fill that spot. So my answer is going to be, I think I would rather just preserve the flexibility, see where this roster fills out. However, that is clearly the need, I don't want to say it's not our weakest position, obviously, but depth-wise, we have the least, where we can have a lot of other positions. Okay, Zubats is out here. We're going to roll with Obi. We're going to roll with Larry Nance, obviously Huff, where if TJ's out, it gets a little bit more interesting.
I was ready to disagree with you, but you've kind of sold me. I do think what you're talking about on the flexibility piece is key. And I think maintaining some of that going forward is helpful to the bigger picture. I am concerned, though. I mean, I hear you. If Braden Smith is the guy that gets the third two-way slot, yeah, you can bring him up to the big team, play him, in a pinch, etc. But the reality is, Ryan, the Eastern Conference is going to be as strong as it ever has been. Right. And there are legitimately, I would say 11 or 12 teams that are coming into next season saying we should be a playoff team. Right. And so that random Tuesday night against Charlotte or against Chicago or against some of these teams that have kind of been middling teams over the last couple of years, the dynamic is changing. And so if you do that too often and you rely on, leveraging your two-way guys to fill a roster pinch, I don't want to get us too far behind the 8 ball. We're already going to be working our superstar back into the lineup alongside some new players in Zoo and Oubre. And I just think the road through the East is going to be more difficult next year. I do think securing a top 4 seed is important from a home court perspective in the first round, particularly as the competition does stiffen. And so I hear you. I think I am probably 51-49 in terms of agreeing with you, but depending upon how the season plays out early, how much is Tyrese available? Is there a minutes restriction? What is that kind of curve getting back into shape, game shape, et cetera? I wouldn't be surprised if there is a move made, particularly around Quentin Jackson, the partially guaranteed contract. And, I'm just throwing a name out there. Like, is a Russell Westbrook worth taking a swing on to bring in a veteran that he's insane, but he also was a former, triple-double machine, and I think could come in and provide you something that you could be confident in versus throwing Braden Smith into the fire. So I think it's a worthy debate, something that we're going to continue to have to keep an eye on, through the rest of this summer league, which will probably just be this game here on Wednesday against Minnesota. And then certainly as we work our way, through the offseason into training camp. So Ryan, anything else on your radar right now from a summer league perspective or just around the league in general that you kind of want to touch on here?
Do we want to touch on him again? The guy we talk about at the end of every podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go.
Well, so and I'll start here. I'll give a little shout out to our friend Alex Golden over at Setting the Pace. He's writing for Sports Illustrated, put out an article yesterday about an upcoming live stream of the, Mind the Game podcast, where LeBron is having Tyrese Halliburton as a co-host for a live event in New York, replacing Steve Nash. And oh my gosh, what if, is Indiana the dark horse candidate? And I don't want to steal any Alex's thunder, because he was sending me some, he was almost rage baiting me in our text conversation yesterday. And I'm going to just give him a plug. Go listen to Setting the Pace today. They've already got some, information out around the LeBron Bronny. How could it happen? So please go listen to their show to get into all of that. All I'm going to say is this, and I'll let you respond. To me, LeBron James is persona non grata in Indiana. I don't want any part of it. Call me Colin Cowherd. I would rather have Ben Simmons at this point than LeBron James. Okay. I am at the point where I understand, and I caught flack for posting a video yesterday. How can you say he's not a winning basketball player? He averaged X, Y, and Z in the playoffs last year. I hear you. And we tried to give him credit. I know he can still play basketball. I'm not denying that there is still fuel left in the tank from a production perspective. What I am saying is all of the extra stuff totally deteriorates from what we have built here in Indiana. Right? This is a selfless group. This is about the team. This is not about the me's in the building. LeBron is the complete antithesis of that. It is all about him. It is all about his story, his ego, the documentary, the Bronny aspect, what is his legacy, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to bring that toxic nature of LeBron into this organization. Forget about the productivity. I get it. Yes. Would we objectively be a better team if we brought him in? Probably. I don't want to be totally ignorant of reality here, but it is all the drama, all the bullshit, all the egomaniac stuff where I say, please keep it as far away from our organization as possible. And I understand that he was productive in last year's postseason, all of that. They got swept by the Thunder. And the last time he was in the conference finals in 22-23, they were swept by the Nuggets. The guy has not been a winning, however you want to define winning. To me, that's getting to the finals and winning, right? Like that's what this organization wants to do. He hasn't done it since the bubble. And before that, it was in Cleveland. And I think his prime is so far behind him from a relevancy perspective in this league. His LA stint has largely been underwhelming. I mean, I know they get the bubble title, but what has he really done out there? He has not been a part of the relevant finals conversation for many, many years. Nobody looked at the Lakers last year and thought, oh, they're the threat in the West. It just wasn't the storyline. And so I probably haven't given you much to react to. I respect the fact that at 40 plus years old, the guy can still play basketball. I don't ever want to see him in a Pacers jersey.
Well, Brad, we started to do clips on Twitter, so I want to clip this. You've heard it here first. Brad Knight wants Russell Westbrook and Ben Simmons over LeBron James.
Absolutely. Bring it on. I no question about it. I wouldn't even bat an eye.
That's awesome. No, as you were talking, really what I was thinking through is how miserable of a season, honestly, as a Pacer season ticket holder, for this to be a season where we sit in our seats every game and it's the LeBron retirement show. That's what everyone's talking about in the media. That's what every game is about. The fans that I don't care to necessarily come to the game are wearing the LeBron jerseys now in the game. I don't want that circus at all. And the only way I could ever stomach it is if he comes, by God, we better win a championship, because that is the only way that makes any of this worth it. So I think you touched on everything I was going to touch on. The only thing, as you were talking, to get back to Pacer news a little bit quickly, is I do know that Quentin Jackson's guaranteed date, I believe, is July 15th, which is tomorrow if you're listening to this podcast on Tuesday, which is an important date. Now, we can push that date. We can non-guarantee him, but I think the argument and what the Pacers are going to be looking at is what we just talked about. do we believe Quentin Jackson is good enough to be the emergency point guard? And that's where he slotted in. Yes, I've already made the argument that he's kind of the 2 guard, but the way the roster is right now, can he play the 3 or play the backup point guard as the 3rd stringer? And if it is, you guarantee it, walk forward, you probably have most of your roster solidified. If he's not, you could potentially waive him coming into today and then get a little bit more cap space to sign somebody who's got more than 1 year experience. And that's where I just don't know who you're going to bring in that's not already on a team that has 1 or less years of experience that you're really going to trust.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Something to keep an eye on, though, for sure. And we'll see how that all plays out. I love that you call out that there is one silver lining to a LeBron, coming to the Pacers from a season ticket holder perspective, the resale value on the seats. Because I'll be honest, and this is not about me. I love being a season ticket holder, but last year it was tough. It was a tough ticket to sell. And so, I think from an investment perspective, not my sharpest investment last year, but we had fun regardless. And certainly LeBron would change that narrative completely. But here nor there, Pacers fans, again, I'll plug it at the end of every episode. If you have not gone onto our Twitter profile at Pacers Post Up, it is pinned on our page. Go check out our July giveaway, giving away a pair of Hallie ones to celebrate 2,000 followers on Twitter. As Ryan said, we're starting to post some more video content. Check us out on YouTube, TikTok, all of that. Let us know what you think. If you vehemently disagree with us, let us know. We're here for all of it, and certainly we appreciate the conversation. Appreciate you guys listening. As always, go Pacers.